Welcome back to the show, everybody. I would like to start this episode with the shameless plug of Bite-Sized Autism 2 by our wonderful, esteemed Dina Waters.
That'd be me. Yeah.
Look at this puppy.
That's the.
Let me just show if you are watching this visually. This is what my first Bite-Sized Autism looks like.
Oh.
I had it completely tabbed out. Nice. Because it's so wonderful and I was using it, right?
Oh, I love it.
I didn't do it with this one, and here's why. Because I got a sneak peek before it went to press.
Yes, you did.
So but I haven't even really looked at deeply into the pictures, Dana, because I did get that that pre-press look at it, but my tabs are coming out because I love tabs. But it brings me to this wonderful page, which is so funny that I would open it to this, Dana. Talk about serendipity.
Yeah.
To this page on bullying.
Are you seriously kidding me? That's the page.
And complex PTSD.
Oh, my
literally, God. How? Because I couldn't have planned this.
Yeah, no. It's like a card trick. It's amazing how you did that. Yeah.
While you didn't see me, I was practicing card tricks. Look at this.
Yep.
Okay, but I mean, so let's, Dana and I, we're both very actually quite sensitive to bullying. Yeah, it's not even criticism,
negativity, slights. Judgment.
Yeah.
In a bunch of different ways, like evaluations from other people that are kind of mean.
Yeah.
I mean, there could be so many definitions of it, I think. And it's interesting. Yeah. People know that follow us that I went to the Adler School of Professional Psychology. So I learned a lot about Adlerian psychology. And he would talk about some of the language is dated. So for our viewers, I understand that all these dudes that were in the Vienna Circle originally were like straight white, old, rich dudes. So that aside.
Yeah.
I feel like I have to always put a specifier on it. He used this language where he would talk about inferiority feelings, right? Mm. And some of the language, you hear that and you're like, oh God, it sounds so Freudian. And actually he broke away from Freud because he was looking at the influence of the community and all the milieu that we live in and not having it just be like, I feel terrible about myself. So he would talk about someone else putting someone else down. Like if I were to put you down, that it really isn't about you. It's about me trying to feel better about myself. It's about me trying to elevate myself out of a feeling of inferiority by putting you down. It's like the ultimate, what we call a projection in psychology, where you pick on things about someone else that you don't like about yourself, or if it even isn't about yourself, you can elevate yourself to a place of superiority by saying, oh, well, they, blah, blah, blah. And you can make yourself feel better. And I always think of that when I see it happen or experience it, that someone is trying to make themselves feel better by demeaning somebody else. It's not a different thing other than that you must have a need to elevate yourself because you feel little. Right?
Yeah.
At least that's what I tell myself to soothe myself around it when I'm the target of it, which is always so horrible.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, I think kind of delving into what exactly is bullying, right? So, for those of us that might have complex trauma that might be more hypersensitive to negativity, right? Because, and that's understandable because of our past and because of our lived experiences. How do we determine when it's crossed the line, right? When is it something that we just need to kind of like brush off. It's not personal. It's not a big deal, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And I know this isn't an all or nothing thing, but it's like this, how, you know, I tend to look at things in a very, or try to look at things anyway, in a very self-reflective way. So I can really go down the rabbit hole personally of how much of this is true. Like if some of this is true about me, it's my responsibility to do that for myself, right? It's my responsibility to apologize or to make amends or to do right, but I tend to take it too far. I tend to give too much of myself in these ways. And so, you know, maybe even coming up with what exactly is bullying. And I guess, you know, in my mind, bullying typically, is defined by there needs to be a differential of power.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? So maybe we've got an authority figure, right? Or even that could even be a social imbalance of power.
Right. Yep. Yep.
That there's a repeated, purposeful interaction of mean or shame or, you know, in a repeated way.
One up that person or for them to have more power than you. Yeah, for sure.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I see it that way. And I think what's so challenging is I've now witnessed so many of my clients have been bullied, like truly bullied by teachers, bullied by parents, bullied by professionals. You know, managing that is so challenging because it's like, how do I stand up to that person?
Yeah.
When retribution is too costly.
Well, you bring up a lot of really good points that what come to mind that people have labeled this rejection sensitivity dysphoria or like a sensitive self. And I don't think we're saying that to say that it's your problem if you're sensitive, not at all. But I think you go further down that rabbit hole of badness when you are sensitive. And I think anybody that has a neurodivergent variable, I think, is sensitive. And then you just have highly sensitive people. It's another term I've heard. But you mentioned something too that is, oh my God, is it true? Is there something about me? You know, I've had multiple instances, and one recently on TikTok where someone stitched a video of mine and said some really demeaning things. And I go to this fear place initially, like, oh crap, did I do something wrong? Did I say the wrong thing? And I immediately am able to say, well, I'm not wrong in this, but the spiral is just, it's just there, and it's so automatic. It's like this drain circling the toilet, you know, it just keeps going down. And I'll tell my wife, here's what happened. She's like, oh, don't listen to them. They're just stupid people online. And so I'm trying to let it roll off my back. And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm freaking out. Why do I have all this free floating anxiety? And then I go to like the worst possible. I always go to like, okay, I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, so I have certain standards I have to maintain, even on social media.
Yep.
And then I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I don't know what I'm talking about. Oh crap. Someone's going to report me to the licensing board. I'm going to lose my license. I'm not going to be a psychologist anymore. Why am I doing this? Should I do this? I should erase all my social media accounts. Why did I even start the Awake Project? Why am I doing this podcast? I should just stop all of it. I mean, that's where I go, right?
This is why you and I are two peas in a pod, because I go very quickly to the same places.
My head knows like, this is not the truth, but my gut is like,
my heart is
crazy. And why?
Yeah, you're trash. Yeah, like find a new profession because you're done. Yeah. Like I can so relate to these things, and you know, like two sides of the same coin, Dana, right? Like on one side, you know, our openness and our sensitivity and those things make us, you know, I think
really pretty good at this.
Dang decent psychologist, right? Like I'll be modest about it, even though, you know, but on the other hand, here we are. And this is why I have to manage my inputs in particular, because I don't do any socials personally. And that there's a big reason for that. One is I don't like juggling a lot of balls, and I don't like open loops. And so social media just happens to just hit all those buttons in an unending torrent And it's just not good for my mental health. And so, I mean, people think I'm an absolute dinosaur, or I have no interest at all in sharing, the personal
what
details
you're
of my
eating
life.
for,
Right. Or that I'm at the dentist or whatever. And, I just know, I just lean into the fact that I'm a very private person and I don't need people to know. And if I need you to know, it's because you need to know. Like, I'll call you, I'll text you. So, I mean, on one hand, I think people, I mean, I can imagine that I would be perceived as being quite, I don't know what the word would be.
Fearful, right? I mean, I think that's adaptive. So for you, it's been, I'm not going to be on those at all. And I've gone back and forth, like, do I want to do this? Do I not want to do this? If it wasn't for Awake, I don't post a lot on my own personal Facebook page. Everything else is for Awake. But it is this, and I sort of feel like I have been getting some form of vaccination against it. And I thank my wife for this because she works in tech and information technology. So she really helped me understand when I first started Awake about what bots were and the kind of language people will use to try to trigger you and try to get you into an argument. And I have found tremendous power in just saying, you're an idiot, I'm not even going to respond, or blocking someone. So, and those were things I didn't have at my resource when I was a kid. And you brought up this idea of if you're neurodivergent or you're different as a kid. You and I have talked a lot about our variables that are different growing up. Kids see that. It's like blood in the water for the shark bullying of kiddom, right? So if you act weird or you look weird or people, they know you're different. And there's been all this sociological research done about the other and not in your tribe. And there's some human nature to marginalize the other because you're not like part of this cloistered middle that will survive. But I like to think we have this big frontal lobe and we should be beyond that. But the hurt that it ensues, and then here you and I are well into adulthood, and we still go to the absolute worst case scenario possible. I even went through all my videos, like, are any of these really unprofessional? Should I delete any of these? What should I do? And I was telling Gwen, I finally found some solace when I found out that this person was bragging about having set their grade school on fire when they were kids. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I felt like I went over the hump of it and could leave it alone a little bit. But when you have someone criticize your clothing or your glasses, I mean, I got called Four Eyes a lot when I was a kid because I've had glasses since I was like 2. And it never made sense to me because I'm like, well, I only have 2 eyes. I didn't understand the metaphor of these being an extra pair of eyes. So the funny thing was that one didn't actually work on me. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. But got picked on and bullied and all kinds of other ways. My sisters picked on me and bullied me, right? I was chunky in junior high, and my sister used to make these little cartoon pictures of a tub of butter and write on it tub of lard, and then hand me these pictures in between classes. Oh, I've given her crap for it too as adults too. She's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. So it seems to be this fundamental thing that like humans do. But you touched on another point that I was trying to get roundabout back to when someone just is sort of good-hearted teasing, right? I think like my wife can say something and we can both laugh about something. Like if I run into a door jam, because the whole proprioception thing.
Oh yeah.
We have this one night where I got up and we were laughing about the Brady Bunch, and I was doing the na 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 dance, and I hit my elbow on the mantle of the fireplace, and the sound that it made, it hurt so bad. But I almost peed my pants. I was laughing so hard. So she'll still say like, "Oh my God!" And in a way, if we didn't have that loving relationship, and I knew it was just something we shared, I'd feel really hurt by it. But I don't. But if anybody else could look at that and say, "Oh, you're such a spaz. What's your problem? You're always running into things," which I got all the time too. So it's sort of like, where is the flavor of it coming from? Is someone trying to have that power differential over you? Are they trying to hurt you? And maybe it's an adaptive strategy, or it's because of that complex trauma. You go to the worst case scenario. But I also remember my therapist telling me in the worst part of my therapy in dealing with childhood trauma, which was when she'd say it is what's going to make you a really good therapist, because you've had all this, you've worked on it, and you are super sensitive. But that's also, there's a double edge to that, because you can't decide when you have that openness and when you don't. It's there all the time. So it's just like zip wires right to your gut, right? Yeah. I think we tend to find each other. I think super sensitive people tend to find each other because you can understand it. And we don't do those things to each other. Like, I never say mean things to people I love, because why would you do? It's so foreign to me to do that. Yeah. And people are like, oh, I'm just kidding. And I'm like, yeah, yuck. Why are you doing that? Right. So whether it's online or in your life, or I have yet to meet a neurodivergent person who doesn't have story after story after story of being marginalized and being bullied. Right.
Yeah.
I think schools, was it the early 90s into the 2000s, schools started doing anti-bullying work, which is great, because I do think bullying still happens, but kids nowadays are better at defending themselves, and they learn more about how to not take it in fully. But that said, there are still people, we hear about kids that are killing themselves because of cyberbullying.
So yes, I mean, cyberbullying can be, I think, pretty insidious.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah. Because it's a very, very. It's not just like being ganged up on on a school playground by 6 people. It could be hundreds, or it's in front of thousands of people. Like, it's
and it can happen when you're home. It's not like you get home and you're safe.
Right. And I mean, the magnitude and the intensity of it is so much greater than, our bullying on a playground. That, this is the piece, of, when are people ready for social media, and I was really careful about this with my daughter, and honestly, it even was sooner than I even wanted. And that was at 15. And that was the hill I was going to die on. I'm like, this is the hill I'm going to die on, because I feel so strongly about it, and I know so much about it. And I know what those algorithms do, and I know why software designers design things in these ways. And like, it's like you almost have no hope. Your brain has no hope. And so that was something for me that it just hit this critical point of, you're disconnected from your peer group by not, being on these platforms yet. And so, I mean, I approached it in a very psychological and geeky kind of way.
How you
myself.
train her to and educate her to deal with it. Yeah. Totally.
And then I was saying to her, like, I will never do something along the lines of, you don't get your phone for 2 weeks. Right. That's not the answer here. I think, especially for teenagers who socially connect through their devices. It's I'm going to sign you up for a blank course that you're going to complete. And that you must complete. It's like, let's build the skills to fill in the gaps and fill in these so that we can use this, because it's not going anywhere. Devices aren't going anywhere. If anything, they're being so integrated into the world. But it does leave it, anyone that has any vulnerabilities. These are the things. And I interpersonal, I can see why some people are just like, it's just easier being alone. It's totally too hard to be with people.
And you have to learn like the tools of it. So on TikTok, for example, you can put your settings where someone can't do, it's called stitching your video. So they can't start with a sectionary video and then stitch into something they're talking about.
Oh, I didn't even know what that was.
Oh, and then the very first time it happened with someone else, I found those settings and I made my videos not stitchable. And then over time, I'm like, well, maybe that, lowers my reach. And some people they kept asking, why can't I stitch a video? Because I want to promote you or whatever. And I'm like, oh, that's seductive, right? Oh yeah, bigger reach. I want more people to see this. So I put the setting to, okay, people can stitch again. And then this last thing happened. I'm like, okay. But the psychology behind it, it's like sort of what you're talking about, like what you teach kids. What can you control? And what is the price you pay for that control? So I can have it be that you can't stitch a video, I've done it to where you can now tag my account and mention my account if you want to, and you can download a video. So people that are savvy might find ways around it, but you can't directly do that to it. And I won't undo that again. And so but for me, I'm like, okay, maybe I won't have as much reach, but that was a seductive thing that I'm like, ooh. And then I'm like, what the hell am I doing? I'm prostrating myself so my videos get more reach. Who the hell cares? Right. But I had to get to that point, and that was a relatively new learning. So there's all these things that, like, the smartness of how they've developed an app or a social media platform, let's say, and then the public learning how to control it. And that's what I think is great about someone I work with. I learned this language a while ago about being like a digital native. So kids that are growing up with this, I'm a digital immigrant. I think I have more savviness than you do, just because I've spent more time in it. But it's not my first language at all, right?
Yeah.
Trying to find settings and things like that still frustrate me, and I don't know they're there. And I'm like, what does this mean? And I've had to get help learning how to do it. I can't tell you how many times my wife said, just Google it. You can find how to do it. I'm like, yeah, but it's not about Google. Yeah, you can Google about TikTok. I'm like, oh yeah. So, but I don't do that. It's not intuitive for me because it's not a native thing for me. Whereas kids nowadays are like, oh yeah, bling, bling, bling. I don't have to worry about that.
Oh yeah.
The vulnerability is still there. The propensity for hurt is still there. Yeah. So it's okay to take care of yourself, not be on social media if you don't want to, change your settings, block people, whatever you need to do to like not have your world punctured into by somebody that you don't want in there.
I love that. I mean, I love that. And I think that applies to even, real life, right? Like if you believe that you're being bullied or mistreated, speak to a trusted adult about it. Speak to a trusted friend or, about it. I just feel like you should never be alone in how hard that is or how awful that feels. And when Mia was little, I say like mean people hurt people,
that's good. And
right. And so it was on one hand to say, look, this person has their own journey. That doesn't excuse how they've treated you, but just know that, not everyone in this world is unkind, hurt people. They need their help. In the meantime, you're talking to someone, so you get help. Like we're going to get help for this and we're going to address this. You know what I mean? But I think that the being bullied and having the lived experience of being bullied or marginalized over and over and again, chronically, right? Intensely. I don't have one client that has never been bullied. And I specifically, support neurodivergence, but I don't have one that doesn't have a pretty salient memory about something kind of awful.
Yeah. Yeah. Or lots of them. Yeah. I think it's just a matter of how many people have. and how it was dealt with or how they dealt with, how much they internalized it or not. And, if you don't have any resilience or help to deal with it, it leaves a bigger mark, right? Because it goes on longer and
yeah. And that's the vulnerabilities,
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why you put bullying and complex PTSD, I think, together in bite-sized autism too, right? It's like we know that people who've been bullied, are, I think, that can lead to complex trauma. And for those of you out there, I mean, Dana and I have talked a lot about complex trauma, but that is early experiences that shape and change your development, your childhood development. For
in a traumatic way. Right?
Oh, yes. I mean, I often, I don't know. There are just some areas or some things in life where I always say, why is emotional abuse appropriate or accepted here? Sports are a good example of that in regards to coaches and things, and what they say to players. And it's like, that doesn't fly
no.
anywhere else.
We've had some really good, for sports fans on here, anybody who else got into March Madness, because my wife and I do every year. We just live, eat, and breathe it. We love it. And when we've been following women's basketball for years and years and years. So it's so fun to see it coming into its own. But to see the difference in coaching styles, let's say with like Dawn Staley, and we just call her a crazy woman, and both of us know who we're talking about, the LSU coach, Kim Mulkey, has always been a bullying, homophobic, racist stuff, and uses those tactics. And both of us could see this one player on that team who had actually gone into the transfer portal last year from Louisville to join LSU. And she'd just do one thing, like wouldn't make a basket. And I'm like, oh, watch, Mulkey's going to put her on the bench. And she would, and she wouldn't even look at her. She'd literally turn her back to her. And you could tell, I'm like, I can't even imagine the kinds of things she must say. And then this article in the Washington Post came out about it. And we're both like, you just wait and see. Haley Van Lith is going to enter the transfer portal for last year. And sure enough, she did. And it's just like, so you have people that are in those positions of power that have the capacity to do really great things and supportive things, like some of these coaches have. The Iowa State coach, same thing. Have such a capacity, or teachers, to build people up, teach them resilience, teach them self-worth, teach them how to deal with adversity, because sometimes you learn more from losing than winning. It's how you handle loss. It's the real character. And then you can have other people. I don't have any problem saying her name because everybody knows this, that Kim Mulkey is just a mean person. She always has been. And she'll say, no, I'm just getting the best out of my players, blah, blah, blah. But she had like players for a while in front of everybody having to do weigh-ins before practice because she thought her players were putting on too much weight. That is so harmful. There is such a capacity for people that are in a position of power to do so much harm. That it's mind-blowing. And we're starting, what it was good about that is the article coming out, and people, we've known this for years. We've known she's, crazy. You have to write down but people would look the other way because she'd win championships. Now we're starting to see this culture zeitgeist shift, which is, you know what? That's not okay just to get to that point. So we're starting to see some of these culture shifts a little bit, which is, that gives me hope. I think societally, because younger people have grown up with this message of it's not okay for this to be happening. It's not just a rite of passage that everybody should have to go through. It's not okay for parents to do that to you. Now it's starting to get out into the mainstream in something like March Madness where you can see it, which is wonderful. I think it's great.
Yeah. In California, we're having this this real big PA push on toxic stress.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's the first time I've ever seen it. It's put out, I think, by First Five, which is a state program.
Oh, okay.
But they're really talking about, and I've never seen it before, this, like, the effect of chronic stress on childhood development.
Oh, wow.
And that it's unseen. And, the commercials kind of surround parents creating safe spaces for their kids to be kids. And again, this is so interesting to me because I hear the dissenters, you got to have discipline, and you got to, and it's like, discipline is different than punishment.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of lost, and so, and I get it. I mean, I see this in a different way. I just never have seen, it's very strong, and maybe it's because I'm binge watching certain shows, and so it's always in my face for whatever reason. And so I'm seeing just kind of more awareness though on, especially in a parent-child relationship, that is a powered differential relationship. How parents are responsible for managing their own big emotions, especially in the context of their own children. And I get it. Our kids bring us probably the greatest amount of stress in our life.
You're talking about having boundaries rather than you have to have, rules, and that's different. And I think boundaries are fine.
Yeah.
But just this power differential of I need to be the one who's bigger than you and hold you down. That's just abuse. Yeah.
Yeah. That's abusive.
Yeah.
Wow. On that note.
All right. Woohoo! Happy podcast.
I don't know, but now I want to see your Brady Bunch dance.
I can do it, just not in front of the fireplace where my elbow's gonna hit it. Yeah. Oh God. Yeah, we laughed pretty hard. It was pretty good.
Oh my gosh! I mean, it's so. My husband literally slipped on a banana peel on the way to
like in a cartoon. Oh my God.
No, straight up. We were on our way to the Pantages, which in LA is the place where there's musicals. And we were walking. We parked at a meter. We were so lucky. We're like, oh my God, we found a meter! Like we were like so excited. And we get out, and he literally steps on a banana peel and almost eats pavement. Like I mean,
oh no!
And we could not. I almost peed my pants because for the longest time it was like, oh my God, banana peels are seriously slippery.
Really are. It's not just lore. It actually came from somewhere.
It's so funny. And so to this day, it's kind of a running joke. But it's that same thing, right?
It's a shared goofy experience. And it's from a place of love. And so it's all about the context. Yeah.
Anyway. All right, everyone. Be good to you. We will see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye, everybody.